So today is lesson 6, this snowy Monday, hopefully one of our last snowy Mondays of the semester, I would hope. So what are we doing today? So here are our learning objectives. And we're going to talk about assignment 3, which is going to be due after reading week. And our primary focus today is looking at the creative process. And I emphasize process. We're not talking about the creative skills, because I have not very much, if anything, to offer to you in terms of creative skill. You guys are actually much better trained in design and creative production than I am. But I want to talk about the process. So we started to kind of consider a little bit on our whiteboard, how we think about solving problems and getting inspired. So we're going to talk about this process, and I'm going to give you some other kind of tools and resources today that may help you, may hopefully introduce some things maybe you're not familiar with that, that may help you in that process. And we're also going to talk a little bit about presentation skills, okay? Because not only does assignment 3 due after reading week, but you also need to present your work. So we're going to look at a couple of approaches and give you a couple of resources today around not only doing the creative work, but then how do we effectively present it? So that's our focus for today. So assignment 3 is now available on Blackboard. And I want to go over the requirements and answer any questions. And I'll also show you some samples from previous work. I have to say, I got some really great submissions for assignment 1. Some really good proposals, and I've asked several of the groups if I can keep your submissions to show classes in the future. So I was really happy with a lot of the submissions we got for assignment 1. So for assignment 3, there's sort of 2 parts to it. You are going to be submitting your design concept deliverables, as well as an in-class presentation, and some client-facing documentation, okay? So part of it is you're going to show your design work, and then there's also a bit of a reflective piece where your group's going to talk about how the project is going so far, what things are working well, and what have been kind of the most difficult parts. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on this a bit through the course. So it's going to be due in class March 15th, so that's 3 weeks from now. So we'll have class again next week. That's March 1st. March 8th is reading week. So it will be due, you have to submit by 9 on Blackboard, submit everything by 9 o'clock 3 weeks from now. Make sure you do all your own work. I don't imagine that's going to be a problem. So, and here's what your Blackboard submission should consist of. You should have your design mockups, and you can either submit those in a single PDF document, or some of you may use an online mockup tool like InDesign or something like that, in which case please give me a link with a login. If your mockups are online, it's up to you and your group which format you choose. Either PDF or online mockups are fine. You're going to do a PDF style guide, and I'll show you examples of this, as well again as your member contributions document for this assignment. Okay. So this is worth the assignment 3 is worth 10%, I believe. Maybe I should just double check that in the syllabus, make sure I didn't adjust that. We'll just check the weightings. Yep, so 10% for the design concept. As well, your presentation will get, and presentation 1 is worth 5%. So in terms of your marks for the design, it's, how does it look? Does it look good? Is it professional? How well does it suit the brand and the audience? And then 8 marks for your style guide documentation. So out of 24, your presentation should be no more than 15 minutes. And each team will have a chance to present in class in 3 weeks. And we will figure out, next week, we'll randomly come up with the presentation order. Okay? So you're going to have 15 minutes max to show your mock-ups to the class, And also give us a brief demonstration of your first release. So where is your website at in 3 weeks' time? I don't expect it to be finished, but you should have some, working components as a first kind of version of the site. And then you'll talk about some of the choices and decisions you've made in the design and how it hopefully meets the client goals for the Man Up project. So this would be typical where we would have a meeting with our client and we'd show them, okay, here's the design, give us feedback, and here's kind of the initial shell of the project and give us some feedback at this stage so we can make some adjustments and changes moving forward. Are we going in the right direction with things? And then I want you to talk about, as a group, what are some of the challenges? And also you should be looking at where is your project in terms of the timelines and budget that you outlined in assignment 1? Are you on time and on budget so far? Are you behind or not, and why? And then just maybe a brief question and answer period in case anybody's got any questions. And this should say 5%, it's not 10, so I'll update that. So 8 marks for the design and demo, and 4 marks each for discussing the challenges, the budget, as well as your professionalism. I'll just update this document. So this will be in class, and this will basically be the full class on the 15th. So our class won't be super long. Shouldn't take us a full 2 hours for this. Now I will show some samples in a moment, but are there any questions about the requirements? So I will, no, we don't, Rebecca. So let's just go with the one that we have for now. As soon as I have something else from Quinton, I will post it. But at the moment, that's what we got. So first I'll show you some samples from the mock-ups for some different projects over the years. I don't really remember this one. So this one is from a couple of years ago. So this was in conjunction with the Aurelia Food Bank. So here were the mock-ups. So they just did a 6-page PDF with both a desktop and mobile view, which I think is a good idea. Your mock-ups should include both, some desktop and mobile views. This group did an amazing job. They actually went overboard. They did 32 pages of mock-ups, which I think was a little bit excessive. They actually mocked up every single screen, which I don't expect you to do. This was kind of overkill. And they also did a tablet view, which is what the client asked for, as well as a desktop view. So you're not required to mock up every single screen. But you should give enough mock-ups to the client so that they can provide some feedback and they get a really good sense of what the application is going to look like. Right, so this group did a series of tablet and desktop views as well. So I don't need 20, you don't need to do 20 or 30 mock-ups, that's overkill. But certainly 1 or 2 would be insufficient. In terms of the style guide, show you a couple of good style guides, and you can see what should be included. They don't have to be that long, so this one was 5 pages. So it lists, sort of their visual, like the guidelines in terms of what kind of look and feel they were trying to create. They showed some different versions of the logo and explained, things like borders, formatting, opacity. So the client would know how to use the logos. They define the color palette, as well as the typography. Okay, so that was one example of a good style guide from the past. This was from last year. This was another project, again, through the Center for Change Making and Social Innovation. So again, we can see the variations on the logo, both the primary and secondary. They list the typography, colors, a few of the visual components defined. So what's the benefit? What's the reason to think about doing a style guide for your clients? This is something you should always be considering doing when you're including. Yep, for branding, that's one, Maggie. Right, so Ivan, that's right. So you're ensuring that the brand is used in the way you intend it to be. Yep. So here's another example. They kind of did the mock-ups and style guide together. They even did, this is cool, they did a QR code so somebody could see a sample directly. Yeah, that's right, Nick. It does show a lot. So it can actually start to feed into your CSS development when you plan it in the style guide. Right, that's really important. So for consistency, right, the client then wants to take that brand and use it in other material, in print material, on business cards, and other things. You've now given them, if you think about it, if you were, right, if we already have the logo, yeah, Maria, I think in this case we can. I'll double check that, but let me check what Quentin said about the logo. So it allows the client, you've then defined this identity so the client can use it later on. And think about it, if you have to go back and make changes to some of the creative work later, having the style guide that already defines everything is going to save you a lot of time. So I'll just check my email. Let's see what Quentin said. Okay, so the OPP is going to design a new logo for now. Use the current logos as placeholders until a new branding catalog is created. So there will be, and even the color scheme is up for debate. There's no harm in teams deviating if they want to. The bones of the site concepts will be the most vital. If students want to exhibit some creativity around the aesthetics, that's totally okay and likely valuable. So yeah, you can take some license with that. Yeah, that's also a really important point, Maggie, right? If someone else down the road needs to do design work, and maybe that someone else is you, think about how useful this would be if you were taking over a client's, creative work, and their original designer who did the brand, they gave you this style guide. So when you're creating it, think about, what would I want from another developer if I was going to take over the branding and creative work on an existing project? So you're largely going to want to know the variations of the logo, the colors, the typography, and any other just kind of guides or rules. So the style guide, you don't have to go crazy. It doesn't need to be 15 or 20 pages. So these examples I've shown you, the good ones, they're somewhere 5 pages, 8 pages. That's really sufficient for your style guide. So think about what you would want. I may have one other. I think this group also, oh no, they did 29 pages. This was overkill. So style guide, colors, all the buttons. So again, yeah, Nick, you can see how this feeds into your CSS. And then they did the mockup. So they did this all as one document, but they did about 10 pages of mockups, tablet and phone. So this is maybe a little more than I'm asking you to do, but I would hope you're getting the idea from seeing these submissions. Are there any questions about the assignment? In terms of the presentation, we'll just have one person from each team share their screen. And when it's your team's time to show us your work. So we'll just do this live via WebEx. And please make sure that you're also tracking all your time on FreeCamp, because that's going to help you speak to the budget and timelines. If you're not tracking your time, it's going to be difficult to figure that out. Yeah, Nick, I suppose if you wanted to, you can. It's probably not recommended. I'll permit you to, but the reason is because normally this would be a sit-down meeting with the client or a remote meeting in the pandemic world, where if you pre-record it, it doesn't really allow the client to like stop you and ask questions or make suggestions in the middle of it, right? Because then you've got to pause the video. So I would recommend you do it live, because the idea is it's a kind of a dialogue between us and our client. So I won't say no, you can't pre-record the video, but I certainly don't suggest that would be the entire presentation, because as I said, the idea really here is to stimulate conversation and get your clients' kind of feedback in an iterative process. Yep, that's true. That's fine. Although you can also all, you can, even if one person's sharing, you can also all have your mics on. But yeah, if you want to do that, then that's acceptable. I'll leave that up to your team as to what you feel is the best approach. But I wouldn't record the entire thing so that there's some potential for interaction. Okay. So I asked you this question, and you can add to the whiteboard if you haven't already. I'm going to pause my recording for a moment. So this video, it's 13 minutes. It's by a designer at a big design firm in the United States. So he kind of discusses where his firm goes and what resources they use to help inspire their creative work, to help get the ideas flowing. And they've got to come up with new design concepts. So I'm going to play the video, and the question I'll put it in the chat. So as you're watching the video, take note of one suggestion or one resource that either you've used already or you haven't used, but you think you might like to use. And take a note, what do you like about that? And we'll talk about it when we're done the video. So were there any resources that sort of jumped out at you from that video? Anybody? Either something you already use or one of the sites that you were like, hey, that's cool. Okay, that's a good point. Justin, and have you used Mobbin Design before? Or is this the first time you're seeing it? Okay. So you like that one? Anybody else? Was there another resource either that you found in the video that you've used or that you said, hey, I'm going to have to go check that out? Okay. Maggie like Tech Meme and Hung you like the UX design tag. Ivan likes Dribble. Yeah, Pinterest is good. So Rachel, you like, and Rachel, have you checked out any of those designers before? Or that'll be new? Okay. CSS battles. Haven't heard of that, but that's a neat resource, Maggie. Maybe if you've got the link for that, you could share it in the chat. Okay, you've seen it as well. Is it cssbattles.com? Oh, cssbattle.dev. Very neat. Yep. So YouTube is a good resource. Anybody else? Was there anything, and CSS tricks? Yep. Anybody else? Was there any other resource that he mentioned in the video that you kind of were interested in? Has anybody used this? I actually kind of like this one. Which was page flows. So, you know, we can go to desktop. So I like this, how you could see the flow. For example, if we want to purchase or sign up or authenticate, how we get, these little videos. But not free, I guess, anymore. Okay, so Hung likes CodePip. Yeah, that's neat. So lots of tools out here. So that video link, if you want to refer back to it, it's here under this design inspiration. So I'll leave the video link up if you want to go back and check out anybody else specific or any of the, for example, Twitter accounts, etc. I'll also just want to go over, we'll come back to this after we take a break. I've posted some documents here that I've sort of cobbled together from various sources. Some of them are old, but I also just open them up and show you briefly. So here's some sort of documents and templates that I've collected teaching this course over the years that may be useful in terms of starting to organize some of these thoughts and ideas. So I'll just open these up and we can have a look. And you don't have to use any of these documents, but some of you may find some of these templates useful. So even though these are a couple of these are quite old, they're actually almost a decade old, but some of these are from a company based, a very big design firm in San Francisco called Go-To-Media, and they're still around. So here's a template, for example, for style guides, where they're listing out different components. And again, these things are going to feed into your CSS development. So things like specifications for sizing, colors, headers, embellishments, types of graphics. So I've posted all these on Blackboard. They've also created this visual design checklist. So kind of before, this would be a good checklist to run through before your presentation on the 15th, right? Where you can check, are we on brand? Do we have accessibility considerations? Do we have liquid screen display? Some of these things are a little bit dated. You know, have we looked at Mac and PC? What about our images in navigation, our font sizes? So there's a little checklist you can run through. They also came up with this document, which they use internally, and they would actually submit this to the client. I'm not requiring you. I used to have students do this, where it's basically before you do the design work, it's kind of like an overview, where you're identifying, okay, who is our client? What are we actually building? Who's the target? And then what's our perception and tone? Like, what is the feeling that our design and layout should be conveying? And then what's kind of the communication strategy? And then also, how is our client, if they're, especially if they're business, how are they positioned? And then they like to distill this all down. This is actually a 20-year-old document, but still relevant. If we were going to distill to a single phrase, what is our design going to convey? So I've put this template up on Blackboard as well, and you may find it useful to use either in this project or in other projects, you know, in terms of informing and getting you to think about your design work, and then informing some of the decisions you make around things like colors, typography, layout, and style, in terms of being able to really articulate the vision of what it is you want to create. And one other article from A List Apart, which you guys probably seen before. So they have created a document, sort of, again, giving out guidance for a style guide. So how to do it, you know, what's the point of it? And again, they've given a sample here with Starbucks branding, for example. So explaining kind of the why and how for some of the planning and documentation around your design work. So some of these resources, they're here optionally for you, but I would recommend that your group, your team, have a look at them. You may find some useful things here in terms of being able to organize your thoughts for assignment 3. Okay, so none of them are required, but they're here as, you know, for you to use as you see fit. All right, it is 9:47 by my clock. Why don't we take a break here, and we'll come back at 11. We're going to look at, when we do, we're going to look at a few other approaches. We're going to look at a few articles and have some discussion around approaches to design concepts. Then we're also going to look at giving a design presentation. If we have time, we'll have a look at this quick example. We may or may not get into this activity, this landing page. We'll see as time permits. Yes, thank you. I did mean 10. At 11, you are free. Thank you very much. We will take 12 minutes here, and we'll come back at 11. And by 11, I mean 10.